The thing about being invisible is that you see everything, and tonight, at Amanda's precious corporate masquerade party, I was seeing way more than I bargained for. "Dave, straighten your tie," my wife hissed through her perfect smile, the kind she reserved for climbing the corporate ladder. "Mr. Wexler is watching." I adjusted the cheap polyester noose around my neck and surveyed the ballroom. 200 of Boston's finest telematics professionals, all wearing masks that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, pretending they gave a damn about charity while networking like their lives depended on it, which, knowing this crowd, they probably did. Amanda Rourke, my wife of 12 years, glided through the crowd like she owned the place. Maybe she thought she did. At 36, she'd clawed her way up to senior sales executive at Pinnacle Telematics, and she wore that title like armor. Her black evening gown probably cost more than my car payment, and the way she carried herself, you'd think she was royalty instead of a girl from Southie who used to wait tables at Denny's. "There's Colin," she said, her voice taking on that breathy quality that made my skin crawl. "I should go say hello." Colin Price, Amanda's direct boss, the golden boy with the fake tan and the even faker smile. 41 years old, married to Rachel in HR, and the kind of guy who called everyone champ while mentally calculating how to stab them in the back. I watched Amanda float toward him, her hand already reaching out to touch his arm in that casual but not casual way that made my stomach turn. They started talking, heads bent close together, and I felt that familiar knot in my chest. "Rough night, huh?" I turned to find Pete Kowalski, my best friend since high school and the only person in this room who knew I existed. He worked for a competing firm, but we'd maintained our friendship through years of beer, baseball, and mutual cynicism. "Just living the dream," I said, raising my glass of cheap wine. "Nothing like watching your wife work a room full of corporate sharks while pretending you matter." Pete snorted. "At least you got invited. Sarah made me come alone because she said I'd embarrass her in front of her colleagues." "Where is the lovely Sarah tonight?" "Over there, pretending she doesn't know me while flirting with that guy from accounting." He gestured toward a cluster of women near the bar. "Marriage is a beautiful thing, isn't it?" I was about to respond when I heard Amanda's laugh, that high, tinkling sound she made when she was trying to impress someone. She was standing even closer to Colin now, her hand resting on his chest as she threw her head back in exaggerated delight at whatever brilliant thing he'd just said. "Jesus," Pete muttered. "She's really going for it tonight." "She's just networking," I said automatically, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Right, and I'm just having a friendly conversation with that bartender instead of trying to get drunk enough to forget I'm here." I was about to defend Amanda, again, when I heard voices from the direction of the ladies' room. 3 women had emerged, still talking loudly enough for half the room to hear. "I'm telling you, Vanessa, it's all about the late meetings," one of them was saying. "That's where the real promotions happen." I recognized the voice. Tara Mitchell, one of Amanda's work friends, a blonde with too much makeup and too few boundaries. "Tara, you're terrible," laughed another voice, Vanessa Chen from marketing. "But you're not wrong. Look at Amanda. 6 months of overtime, and suddenly she's up for regional manager." The third woman, Jenna Walsh from accounting, looked uncomfortable. "Maybe we shouldn't—" "Oh, please," Tara interrupted. "Everyone knows what's going on. Colin's not exactly subtle about it, neither is she. I mean, did you see them at the Marriott last Tuesday? I was there for the Henderson client dinner, and they were practically eating each other's faces in the lobby." My blood turned to ice water. "The question is," Vanessa continued, "does his wife know? Rachel's in HR. She could make things very complicated if she found out her husband was playing hide the sausage with his subordinate." "And what about Dave?" Jenna asked quietly. "He seems like a nice guy." Tara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Dave? Please. He's so oblivious he probably thinks Amanda's working late because she's dedicated. Men like that deserve what they get." They moved away, still giggling, but their words echoed in my head like a death sentence. 6 months of late meetings. The Marriott last Tuesday. Amanda had told me she was at a client dinner that night. She'd come home at midnight, claiming the presentation had run long. I felt Pete's hand on my shoulder. "Dave, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I need some air," I managed. But before I could move, someone appeared at my elbow. A woman in an elegant red dress and a black mask that couldn't hide the sharp intelligence in her green eyes. "Dave Rourke, isn't it?" she said. Her voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of steel underneath. "I'm Rachel Price, Colin's wife." My mouth went dry. "Oh, hi. Nice to meet you." "Is it?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Can I buy you a drink? You look like you could use one." Before I could object, she was steering me toward the bar, her grip on my arm surprisingly firm. She ordered 2 whiskeys, the good stuff, not the swill they were serving at the open bar, and handed me one. "To marriage," she said, raising her glass. I stared at her. "I'm sorry." "Marriage," she repeated. "That sacred institution we're both pretending to enjoy tonight." I took a sip of whiskey, feeling it burn down my throat. "I don't know what you mean." Rachel laughed, a sound completely different from Amanda's artificial tinkle. This was real, bitter, and somehow more honest than anything I'd heard all night. "Oh, Dave. Sweet, oblivious Dave. Do you know where your wife is right now?" I glanced around the room and spotted Amanda near the auction tables, still glued to Colin's side. As I watched, he leaned down to whisper something in her ear, and she giggled, actually giggled, like a schoolgirl with a crush. "She's networking," I said weakly. "Is that what we're calling it?" Rachel took another sip of her whiskey. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like she's trying to climb the corporate ladder one rung at a time, if you know what I mean." "Look, I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Dave. I'm telling you straight out. Your wife has been sleeping with my husband for 6 months. Every Tuesday and Thursday, sometimes Fridays when they're feeling particularly adventurous. The Marriott on State Street, room 412. They have a standing reservation." The whiskey glass slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on the marble floor. The sound seemed to echo through the entire ballroom, and for a moment, conversation stopped as people turned to look at us. "Careful there, champ," said a familiar voice. Colin appeared beside us, his perfect smile firmly in place. "Everything okay over here?" "Just fine, darling," Rachel said sweetly. "Dave and I were just getting acquainted." Colin's eyes flicked between us, and I saw something like worry flash across his features. "Great. Well, don't monopolize him too long. I'm sure Amanda's looking for him." "Oh, I doubt that," Rachel said. "She seems pretty occupied at the moment." Colin's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Well, enjoy the party, Dave. And thanks again for all your hard work on the Morrison account. That GPS tracking data you pulled really saved our bacon." He walked away, and I felt Rachel's eyes on me. "GPS tracking data?" she said thoughtfully. "What exactly do you do, Dave?" "I'm a senior telematics technician," I said automatically. "I handle the technical side of our tracking systems, data retrieval, system maintenance, that sort of thing." Rachel's smile was sharp as a blade. "How interesting. So you could, theoretically, access GPS data from any vehicle in your company's system?" "Theoretically, yes, but there are privacy laws." "Of course there are. But if someone gave you permission to access their own vehicle's data, that would be perfectly legal, wouldn't it?" I stared at her. "What are you getting at?" She finished her whiskey and set the glass down with a decisive click. "I'm getting at the fact that we have something in common, Dave. We're both married to cheating spouses who think we're too stupid to figure out what's going on. The difference is, I've known about it for months, and I've been gathering evidence." "Evidence?" "Photos, text messages, credit card receipts, hotel records, everything I need to destroy them both, professionally and personally." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The question is, do you want to help me do it?" I looked across the room at Amanda, who was now openly flirting with Colin while their colleagues pretended not to notice. My wife of 12 years, the woman I'd loved since college, the mother of my son, was making a fool of me in front of 200 people. "What did you have in mind?" I heard myself ask. Rachel's smile was predatory. "Meet me in my office Monday morning, 9 sharp, and Dave?" "Yeah?" "Bring your laptop. We're going to need those GPS records." She walked away, leaving me standing by the bar with my world crumbling around me. Across the room, Amanda caught my eye and waved, her smile bright and false as a neon sign. I waved back, and for the first time in months, I smiled too. Because Rachel was right about one thing. I wasn't married anymore. Not really. And if Amanda wanted to play games, well, she was about to learn that her invisible husband knew how to play too. Monday morning hit Boston like a sledgehammer, gray and unforgiving. I sat in my Honda Civic in the Pinnacle Telematics parking garage, laptop bag on my passenger seat, wondering what the hell I was doing. Rachel's office was on the 7th floor, HR department, corner suite with a view of the harbor that cost more than my annual salary. I'd never been up there before. Guys like me didn't usually have business with HR unless we were getting fired or sexually harassed. The elevator ride felt like climbing toward my own execution. What was I supposed to say? "Hi, I'm here to help you destroy my marriage and possibly my career?" But every time I thought about backing out, I remembered Amanda's laugh from Saturday night, the way she'd touched Colin's chest, the casual cruelty in Tara's voice when she'd called me oblivious. Rachel's secretary, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, barely looked up when I announced myself. Ms. Price is expecting you. Go right in. Rachel's office was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, modern, intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and diplomas from Harvard Law covering one wall. Rachel herself sat behind a glass desk that probably cost more than my car, wearing a crisp white blouse and a smile that could cut diamonds. Dave, right on time. Coffee? Sure. I sat down in the chair across from her desk, feeling like a defendant awaiting sentencing. She poured 2 cups from an expensive-looking machine in the corner, then settled back in her chair and studied me over the rim of her mug. You look like hell, she said finally. Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel special. She laughed, that same bitter, honest sound from Saturday night. Sorry, I'm not used to sugarcoating things. Occupational hazard of working in HR. So, did you bring your laptop? I patted the bag beside me. Yeah, but I want to know what we're doing before I do anything that could get me fired. Smart man. I like that. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. Let me show you what we're dealing with. She spread photographs across the desk like a poker player laying down a royal flush. Amanda and Colin entering the Marriott. Amanda and Colin in the hotel restaurant. Amanda and Colin kissing in the parking garage of our office building. Jesus, I whispered. That's just the appetizer, Rachel said. Look at these. More photos, text message screenshots, credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never seen. A paper trail of betrayal stretching back 6 months, maybe more. How long have you known? I asked. Since February. Colin got sloppy with his phone, started getting calls at weird hours. I hired a private investigator initially, but then I realized I could do most of the work myself. Amazing what you can accomplish when you have access to company records and a healthy dose of righteous fury. I picked up one of the text messages, printed on company letterhead. It was from Amanda to Colin. Can't wait for our meeting tomorrow. I'll wear the red dress you like, the one that's easy to take off. My hands shook as I set it down. Why are you showing me this? Because I need your help, and you need mine. See, Colin isn't just cheating on me. He's cheating on the company, too. Look at this. She handed me a stack of invoices and contracts. At first glance, they looked normal, standard service agreements with various clients. But as I studied them more closely, I started to see the pattern. These are all for the same shell company, I said. Meridian Consulting Services, which is owned by Colin's brother-in-law in New Hampshire. They've been funneling company contracts to Meridian for inflated services, then splitting the kickbacks. And guess who's been signing off on all the invoices? I didn't need to guess. Amanda's signature was on every page, her neat handwriting authorizing payments that had probably netted them hundreds of thousands in illegal profits. This is embezzlement, I said. It's fraud, conspiracy, and probably a few other felonies I haven't figured out yet. The only problem is proving it in a way that won't get thrown out of court. That's where you come in. Me? Rachel leaned forward, her green eyes intense. You have access to the GPS tracking data for all company vehicles, right? Including Colin's BMW and Amanda's Mercedes? Yeah, but no buts, Dave. I need those records. Every trip to every hotel, every unexplained detour, every lie they've told about where they were and when. Can you get them? I thought about it. Technically, what she was asking wasn't illegal. The vehicles were company property, and as a senior technician, I had legitimate access to the tracking systems. But using that access to spy on my wife and her lover, that was a gray area at best. What happens after we get the data? I asked. Rachel's smile was cold as January in Boston. Then we destroy them. Publicly, professionally, and personally. They want to play games? Fine. But they're about to learn that they picked the wrong people to fuck with. I stared at the evidence spread across her desk. Months of lies, betrayal, and theft laid out in black and white. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for 12 years, had been systematically destroying our marriage while stealing from the company that employed us both. Okay, I said. What do you need me to do? Rachel's smile widened. First, we need those GPS records. Then we're going to set a trap. What kind of trap? The company charity gala is next month. 500 people, including the board of directors, major clients, and every gossip columnist in the city. It's going to be Amanda's big night. She's supposed to be announced as the new regional manager. Supposed to be? Well, that depends on whether she's still employed by then, doesn't it? Rachel stood and walked to her window, looking out at the harbor. Tell me, Dave, how good are you with presentation software? Pretty good. Why? Because we're going to give the audience a show they'll never forget. And when we're done, Amanda and Colin won't just be unemployed, they'll be unemployable. I felt a cold thrill run down my spine. You're talking about destroying their careers. I'm talking about justice. They made their choices, Dave. They decided to lie, cheat, and steal. All we're doing is making sure there are consequences. She was right, of course. Amanda had made her bed, literally, with Colin Price. But as I sat there looking at the evidence of my wife's betrayal, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Power. For 12 years, I'd been the invisible husband, the guy who fixed the computers and stayed in the background while Amanda climbed the corporate ladder. But now, for the first time, I held the cards. When do we start? I asked. Rachel turned back to me, her smile sharp as a scalpel. Right now. Boot up that laptop, Dave. It's time to find out exactly where your wife has been spending her time. I opened my laptop and connected to the company network. Within minutes, I had access to the GPS tracking system for the entire fleet. Amanda's Mercedes, Colin's BMW, even the company cars they'd use for client meetings that I now knew were anything but professional. Got it, I said. What dates do you want to start with? All of them. Every trip, every destination, every lie they've told for the past 6 months. We're going to build a timeline that will hold up in court and destroy them in the court of public opinion. As the data started flowing across my screen, hotel after hotel, restaurant after restaurant, a digital breadcrumb trail of adultery and fraud, I felt the last remnants of my marriage crumble away. But for the first time in months, I wasn't sad about it. I was angry. And anger, I was beginning to realize, was a much more useful emotion than heartbreak. Rachel, I said, not looking up from my screen, when this is over, what happens to us? What do you mean? I mean, after we destroy them, what's left? You'll divorce Colin, I'll divorce Amanda, but then what? She was quiet for a long moment. Then we pick up the pieces and build something better, something honest. I looked up at her, this woman I barely knew who had become my unlikely ally in the most important battle of my life. Think we can do that? Her smile was different this time, softer, more genuine. I think we're about to find out. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of secret meetings, data analysis, and careful planning. Rachel and I had become an unlikely team, united by betrayal and fueled by a shared desire for justice, or revenge. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. We met every Tuesday and Thursday, the same days Amanda claimed to be working late, in Rachel's office, poring over GPS data, financial records, and hotel receipts. The picture that emerged was even worse than I'd imagined. Amanda and Colin hadn't just been having an affair, they'd been running a sophisticated fraud operation. The shell company in New Hampshire was just the tip of the iceberg. They'd been inflating invoices, creating fake vendor accounts, and skimming money from legitimate contracts for over a year. Look at this, Rachel said, pointing to a spreadsheet on her computer screen. They've stolen nearly $500,000 from the company, and Amanda's been using her position to approve payments that should have required board oversight. I stared at the numbers, feeling sick. How did they think they'd get away with it? Because they're arrogant. They think everyone else is as stupid as they believe we are. Rachel's voice was ice cold. But they made one crucial mistake. What's that? They underestimated us. The charity gala was scheduled for Friday night at the Boston Harbor Hotel. 500 of the city's business elite would be there, along with reporters from the Globe and Herald. Amanda had been talking about it for weeks, giddy with excitement about her upcoming promotion announcement. She'd even bought a new dress, a stunning red number that cost more than I made in a week. When I'd asked how she could afford it, she'd laughed and said she'd gotten a performance bonus. Now I knew exactly what kind of performance she meant. The presentation is loaded, Rachel told me that Thursday afternoon. I've embedded the evidence in slides that will automatically advance during Amanda's introduction. GPS data, hotel receipts, photographs, text messages, everything. And you're sure no one will trace it back to us? I'm the head of HR, Dave. I have legitimate access to all of this information. And you're a senior technician who was asked to verify GPS data for a routine audit. We're covered. I nodded, but my stomach was still churning. In 36 hours, we were going to destroy 2 people's lives in front of half of Boston's business community. The rational part of my brain wondered if we were going too far. The angry part of my brain told the rational part to shut up. Friday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth and clear skies. Amanda spent 3 hours getting ready, transforming herself into the perfect corporate wife. Her red dress hugged every curve, her makeup was flawless, and her smile could have powered the city. You look beautiful, I told her as we walked into the hotel ballroom, and I meant it. Even knowing what I knew, even planning what I was planning, she was still stunning. Thank you, baby. She kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. Tonight's going to be perfect. She had no idea how right she was. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, and enough flowers to stock a funeral home. A stage dominated one end of the room, with a massive projection screen that would display the evening's presentations. Amanda immediately began working the room, introducing me to colleagues and clients with the kind of practiced charm that had made her so successful. I smiled and shook hands and made small talk, all while watching the clock and waiting for the main event. Colin was there with Rachel, playing the devoted husband while his wife played the supportive spouse. They were good actors, I had to give them that. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed they were just another happily married couple enjoying a night out. "Dave!" Pete appeared at my elbow, slightly drunk and completely oblivious to the tension radiating from every pore of my body. "Hell of a party. You clean up nice." "Thanks, Pete. You too." "Sarah's around here somewhere, probably networking her ass off. You know how it is." He gestured vaguely toward the crowd. "So, big night for Amanda, huh? Regional manager? That's huge." "Yeah," I said. "Huge." The dinner portion of the evening passed in a haze of overpriced food and corporate small talk. I barely tasted anything, too focused on what was coming next. Amanda was practically vibrating with excitement, checking her phone every few minutes and whispering with her friends about the announcement. Finally, after what felt like hours, the lights dimmed and Mr. Wexler took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight for our annual charity gala. Before we begin the auction, I'd like to take a moment to recognize some of our outstanding employees." This was it. I found Rachel in the crowd and caught her eye. She nodded slightly, then looked toward the projection booth where one of her trusted IT staff was waiting with our modified presentation. "Our first recognition tonight goes to someone who has shown exceptional dedication to our company's growth and success. Please join me in congratulating our new regional manager for the Northeast Territory, Amanda Rourke." The applause was thunderous as Amanda made her way to the stage, her red dress catching the lights like liquid fire. She looked radiant, triumphant, completely unaware that she was walking into an ambush. "Thank you so much," she said into the microphone, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "This promotion means everything to me. I've worked so hard for this opportunity, and I want to thank everyone who supported me along the way." The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. "I especially want to thank my mentor and supervisor, Colin Price, who has been instrumental in my professional development." She turned toward Colin's table and blew him a kiss. The gesture was meant to look playful and innocent, but knowing what I knew, it felt obscene. "Now," Mr. Wexler said, retaking the microphone, "let's take a look at some of Amanda's outstanding achievements over the past year." The projection screen lit up, and for a moment, everything proceeded normally. There were charts showing sales figures, client testimonials, and professional headshots of Amanda looking competent and trustworthy. Then the first GPS map appeared. It showed Amanda's Mercedes making repeated trips to the Marriott on State Street, with timestamps and duration data clearly visible. The audience murmured, confused by the sudden shift in presentation content. "I'm sorry," Mr. Wexler said, looking toward the projection booth. "There seems to be some technical difficulty." But the presentation continued automatically. Hotel receipts filled the screen, showing charges for champagne, room service, and extended stays. Then came the photographs, Amanda and Colin entering the hotel, leaving the hotel, kissing in the parking garage. The murmur of confusion turned into gasps of shock and recognition. I watched Amanda's face drain of color as she realized what was happening. On screen, a text message conversation played out between her and Colin, their words projected in 20-foot-tall letters for everyone to see. "Colin, can't wait to celebrate your promotion properly tomorrow night. Amanda, just you, me, and that bottle of champagne you promised? Dave thinks I'm at a client dinner. Colin, your husband's an idiot. Good thing you're married to me in every way that matters." The ballroom erupted. 500 people were on their feet, some pointing at the screen, others pulling out their phones to record the spectacle. At his table, Colin looked like he was about to vomit. But we weren't done. The financial records came next. Invoices, bank transfers, and a detailed breakdown of the money they'd stolen. The shell company in New Hampshire, the inflated contracts, the kickbacks, all of it laid out in excruciating detail. Amanda stood frozen on the stage, the microphone still in her hand as her career and reputation disintegrated in real time. When she finally found her voice, it was barely a whisper. This isn't... I can explain." "Explain this!" Colin was on his feet, pointing an accusing finger at the screen where his own text messages were now displayed. In a desperate attempt to save himself, he was throwing Amanda under the bus in front of 500 witnesses. She planned the whole thing, he shouted. The affair, the fraud, all of it. I was just trying to help her career, and she seduced me into going along with her scheme. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Amanda stared at him in shock, finally understanding that her lover was abandoning her to save his own skin. "You bastard," she whispered, but the microphone picked it up and broadcast it to the entire room. "You said you loved me. You said we'd be together." "I never said that," Colin shot back. "You're delusional, Amanda. Everyone can see that now." Security guards were moving through the crowd now, heading for the stage. Mr. Wexler had regained control of the microphone and was trying to restore order, but it was too late. The damage was done. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. There's obviously been some kind of mistake. The only mistake," Rachel said, rising from her seat with perfect composure, "was trusting these two with company resources and confidential information." She walked to the front of the room, every inch the professional HR director, and addressed the crowd with the kind of authority that comes from being absolutely right. "As head of human resources, I can confirm that the evidence you've just seen is authentic and has been turned over to the appropriate authorities. Both Mr. Price and Ms. Rourke have been terminated, effective immediately, and the company will be pursuing all legal remedies available to recover the stolen funds." The security guards reached Amanda and began escorting her from the stage. As she passed my table, she looked directly at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You did this," she said, her voice carrying despite the chaos around us. "You pathetic, vindictive little man. You destroyed everything because you couldn't handle the fact that I was better than you." I stood up slowly, feeling the eyes of 500 people on me, and for the first time in 12 years of marriage, I looked my wife directly in the eye without flinching. "No, Amanda," I said quietly. "You destroyed everything the moment you decided I wasn't worth being faithful to. I just made sure everyone else knew what kind of person you really are." The security guards continued their escort, and Amanda disappeared through the ballroom doors, her red dress the last thing I saw before she vanished from my life forever. The room was still in chaos, but I felt strangely calm. Across the crowd, Rachel caught my eye and smiled. Not the cold, calculating smile I'd grown used to, but something warmer and more genuine. We'd done it. We'd exposed the truth, protected the company, and ensured that Amanda and Colin would face the consequences of their actions. It wasn't just revenge. It was justice. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The aftermath of the gala hit like a tsunami. By Saturday morning, the story was front-page news in both the Globe and Herald. Corporate exec's affair and fraud scheme exposed at charity event. The photos from the presentation had somehow leaked online, and Amanda's face was plastered across every business blog and social media platform in the city. I spent Saturday morning fielding phone calls from reporters, lawyers, and curious neighbors. My phone rang so often I finally turned it off and unplugged the landline. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 12 years I'd been invisible, and now suddenly everyone wanted to talk to me. Amanda hadn't come home Friday night. I'd expected that, but seeing her empty side of the closet still hit harder than I'd anticipated. She'd taken her jewelry, her laptop, and most of her expensive clothes, leaving behind only the remnants of our life together, wedding photos, anniversary gifts, and a note on the kitchen counter that simply read, "My lawyer will be in touch." Pete showed up around noon with coffee and donuts, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. "Jesus Christ, Dave," he said, settling into my kitchen chair with a groan. I knew things were bad, but that was nuclear. Yeah, well, sometimes nuclear is what it takes. Sarah's been on the phone all morning with her work friends. Apparently the whole thing is all anyone's talking about. They're calling it the Charity Gala Massacre. I almost smiled at that. How's Sarah taking it? She's torn between being horrified by the public spectacle and impressed by the sheer audacity of it. I think impressed is winning. Pete bit into a donut and studied me carefully. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected, honestly. I keep waiting for the guilt to kick in, but it hasn't happened yet." "Maybe because you didn't do anything wrong. They made their choices, Dave. You just made sure there were consequences." That afternoon, Rachel called and asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. We chose a small place in Cambridge, far enough from our usual haunts to avoid the gossip mill that was undoubtedly churning at full speed. She looked tired, but satisfied, like a general who just won a particularly difficult battle. "How bad is the fallout?" I asked after we'd found a quiet corner table. "For them? Catastrophic. The SEC opened an investigation this morning, and the DA's office is talking about criminal charges. Colin's been fired, obviously, and his law license is under review. Amanda..." She paused to sip her coffee. "Amanda's going to have a very hard time finding work in this city. And for us? Clean as whistles. The company's treating us like heroes for exposing the fraud. I've been fielded calls from headhunters all morning, and I suspect you'll be getting some interesting job offers soon, too. I nodded, but something was nagging at me. It feels too easy. Amanda's not the type to just disappear quietly. She's going to want revenge. Rachel's expression darkened. Let her try. She's got bigger problems than us right now. But I was right to be worried. That evening, as I was grilling a burger on my back patio, Tara Mitchell appeared at my fence line. Amanda's former friend looked like she'd been crying, her makeup smeared and her usually perfect hair disheveled. "Dave," she called out, "can I talk to you?" I walked over to the fence, spatula still in hand. "What do you want, Tara?" "I want to know how you could do that to her. Amanda was your wife, for God's sake. Whatever problems you had, you should have handled them privately." "Like she handled her affair privately?" Tara's face flushed. "That's different. Marriage is complicated. But what you did? That was cruel. You humiliated her in front of the entire city." "She humiliated herself. I just made sure people knew about it."
She's my friend, Dave. And right now, she's staying on my couch because she can't afford a hotel. Her bank accounts are frozen, her credit cards are maxed out, and she can't even get a job interview because everyone in the city knows her face."
Maybe she should have thought about that before she decided to steal $500,000 from her employer. Tara stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're not the man I thought you were." "You're right," I said. "I'm not the pushover everyone thought I was. And if Amanda thinks she can send her friends to guilt-trip me into feeling sorry for her, she's more delusional than I realized." Tara stormed off, but her visit left me unsettled. If Amanda was desperate enough to send emissaries, what else might she be planning? I got my answer the following Tuesday. I was working late at the office, catching up on the backlog that had accumulated during my recent distraction with revenge planning, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Amanda's number. "Hello, Dave." Her voice was different, harder, colder than I'd ever heard it. "Amanda, I figured you'd call eventually. We need to talk." "I don't think we do. Your lawyer can handle everything through mine." "This isn't about the divorce, Dave. This is about what you've done to me, what you and that bitch Rachel have done. We exposed the truth. If you can't handle the consequences..." "Consequences?" Her laugh was bitter and sharp. "You want to talk about consequences? Fine. Let's talk about what happens when I tell everyone about your little affair with Rachel. How do you think that will play in the divorce proceedings?" My blood went cold. "What affair?" "Oh, please. You think I'm stupid? All those secret meetings, all that time you spent together planning your little revenge fantasy. You think people won't put two and two together? We never... It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do, Dave. It matters what people believe. And right now, I can make them believe whatever I want." The line went dead, and I sat there staring at my phone, feeling the first stirrings of real fear. Amanda was right. Perception was everything in a situation like this. If she could convince people that Rachel and I had been having an affair, it would undermine everything we'd accomplished and potentially destroy both our careers. I called Rachel immediately. "She called you too?" Rachel said without preamble. "Yeah, are you worried?" "I'm concerned. Amanda's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. But we've got truth on our side, Dave. That counts for something." "Does it? Because right now, it feels like we're about to get dragged into the same mud we pulled her out of." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Meet me at my office tomorrow morning. We need to talk strategy." But Amanda wasn't done. Over the next few days, the whisper campaign began in earnest. Suddenly, everywhere I went, conversation stopped when I walked into a room. Colleagues who had congratulated me on exposing the fraud now gave me sideways looks and knowing smirks. The rumors were subtle but persistent. Dave Rourke and Rachel Price had been having an affair for months. The whole fraud investigation was just a cover story to get rid of their respective spouses. They'd planned the whole thing together, using their access to company systems to frame Amanda and Colin. It was brilliant, in a twisted way. Amanda was taking the one thing that could have been true, Rachel and I getting together, and weaponizing it against us. The fact that it wasn't true didn't matter. The seed of doubt was planted, and in the corporate rumor mill, seeds grew fast. By Thursday, I was getting strange looks from people I'd worked with for years. My boss, Jim Patterson, called me into his office for what he termed a friendly chat about maintaining professional boundaries during personal crises. "I'm not saying I believe the rumors, Dave," he said, clearly uncomfortable with the conversation, "but appearances matter in this business. Maybe it would be best if you and Rachel kept your distance for a while, just until things die down." "Jim, we're not having an affair. We never were. We worked together to expose fraud and protect the company." "I believe you, but not everyone does, and that's the problem. That evening, I was walking to my car in the parking garage when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see a man I didn't recognize, tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident swagger that screamed corporate executive. "Dave Rourke?" he said. "Yeah, who's asking?" "Marcus Webb. I'm a friend of Amanda's." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She asked me to deliver a message." I felt my muscles tense. "What kind of message?" "The kind that suggests you might want to reconsider your current course of action. Amanda's a smart woman with a lot of friends in this city, friends who don't appreciate seeing her treated badly." "Is that a threat?" "It's friendly advice. Back off, stop spreading lies about her, and maybe the rumors about your affair with Rachel Price will stop spreading too." I stepped closer to him, close enough to smell his expensive cologne and see the sweat beading on his forehead despite his confident demeanor. "Here's some friendly advice for you, Marcus. Tell Amanda that if she wants to play games, she picked the wrong opponent. I've got evidence of every crime she committed, every lie she told, and every dollar she stole. If she keeps pushing, I'll make sure that evidence finds its way to every prosecutor, reporter, and employer in New England." Marcus's smile faltered. "You're making a mistake, Rourke." "The only mistake I made was waiting 12 years to see my wife for what she really is. Now get the hell away from my car before I call security." He backed off, but as he walked away, he called over his shoulder, "This isn't over." Maybe not, I thought as I drove home. But Amanda was about to learn that her invisible husband had become very visible indeed, and he wasn't backing down.